that is the county government of Nairobi and Kenya Power and Lighting Company, KPLC, thus posing a health hazard to staff and the public after that incident. Mr. Speaker, the second statement. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Health on the state of available stock, debt owed to suppliers by the county, and existing arrangements with the suppliers for the supply of drugs and related consumables, and any other supplies. Mr. Speaker, number two, explain the reasons behind the persistent shortage of drugs in Nandi County and more so in these facilities, which has forced patients to purchase medication from pharmacies outside hospital. Mr. Speaker, sir, number three, indicate when the Nandi County government last procured hospital equipment, including beds and wheelchairs, and provide details in general maintenance works in wards and other service area, and include the cost of ongoing repair and refurbishment of the hospital and other facilities. Mr. Speaker, number four, explain the status of the implementation of collective bargaining agreement, CPA, and return to work formula between the healthcare workers and the county government in Nandi County, and explain why the county government has failed to harmonize promotion for doctors, nurses, clinical officers, and other health workers. Mr. Speaker, and finally, update the Senate on the agreements in place to address ongoing strikes by clinical officers, including who are making noise outside there, and the shortage of health workers across the country and county, which has resulted from the recent mass dismissals, leading to the closure of key facilities, including Kabiet Sub-County Hospital, Maraba Sub-County Hospital, Kobuchai Hospital, and Mosoriat Sub-County Hospitals, which are major health facilities across the county. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Senator James Murango. Do you have any instructions? You can give him maybe.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Education regarding the challenges facing teachers' medical cover. Mr. Speaker, sir, the Teacher Service Commission, TSC, and the National Treasury have not remitted medical cover to teachers' medical insurance provider, causing the providers to withdraw services. This has caused thousands of teachers and their dependents to face uncertainty as hospitals have denied them medical services. In the statement, the committee should, 1, explain why Teachers Service Commission, TSC, and National Treasury have not remitted funds to teachers' medical insurance providers. 2, state the amount of medical insurance capitation owed to teachers' medical insurance providers and provide a timeline for settling the arrears. 3, outline the reasons for delay in providing medical bills for services rendered to teachers, which have caused unnecessary suffering and inconveniences. And 4, state the measures in place by the TSC to ensure that all teachers across the country have access to medical services in accordance with their terms of engagement. Senator James Kamau Murango, MP, Senator Kirinyaga.
Senator Richard Onyonka, you have 2 statements in them.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Committee on Lands, Environment and Natural Resources regarding the ongoing land dispute involving Mrs. Agnes Kemuma Bichanga, a resident of a place called Chirichiro sublocation, Ibeno location, Keumbu sub-county, Kisii County, who has been subjected to an unjust eviction order from her late husband's parcel number, Yaribari Church in Nyantrago 894. Mr. Speaker, Mrs. Bichanga is 80 years old. She's a widow. She has resided on the said parcel of land since her marriage to the late Mr. Bichanga Nyaosi for over 55 years. However, following her husband's demise on 28 September 2002 and a subsequent burial on the 3rd of October 2002, a claim on this land on which Mr. Nyaosi was buried was made by a Mr. Johnson Aranga Angwenyi barely 3 weeks after the old man had been buried. This Mr. Johnson Aranga allegedly claimed ownership to this property without any proof. This matter has since been the subject of a protracted legal battle marred by irregularities, including missing court files, suspicious land transfers, threats to the old lady, Mama Bichanga, and fraudulent dealings within the land registries of Kisii County. In light of the foregoing, Mr. Speaker, I ask therefore the committee to, number one, investigate the records from the Ministry of Lands, the green cards on this property, which indicate the multiple questionable transactions, if any, including transfers of ownership to unknown individuals and a suspicious issuance of a title deed to Mr. Angwenyi on the 14th of November 2002, just 2 weeks after Mr. Nyaosi had died. Mr. Speaker, number two, I would like the committee to shed light on the circumstances that led to the referral of the case to the Keumbu Land Disputes Tribunal, explaining why the case was to proceed in the absence of Mrs. Michanga, who was a bit unwell, thus denying her the right to a fair hearing, and clarify the subsequent enforcement of the tribunal's decision by the Keroka law courts in the state of the Kisii law courts. Mr. Speaker, the Keumbu law courts are in Kisii County and the Keroka law courts are in Nyamira County. Number three, I would like the committee to investigate the cause and nullification of the alleged fraudulent land transactions that have led to the irregular issuance of a title deed to Mr. Angwenyi while recommending the suspension of any eviction orders to against Mrs. Bichanga, pending a thorough review of the case by the relevant government agencies, including the Ministry of Lands and the National Land Commission. Mr. Speaker, number four, I would like to persuade the committee to ensure that justice prevails for Mrs. Agnes Kemuma Bichanga by compelling Mr. Angwenyi to compensate her for the pain caused and any monetary cost that she may have incurred in pursuit of justice, while ensuring the protection of widows' land rights by enforcing existing laws that safeguard the vulnerable individuals from land depossession, and recommend action against any public officials found complicit in facilitating such fraudulent transfers and transactions. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The second question, Mr. Speaker, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Education regarding the transfer of the principal of Kisii National Polytechnic amid allegations of excess and a lot of financial mismanagement. Mr. Speaker, sir, the Kisii National Polytechnic is one of the country's leading technical institutions, playing a vital role in equipping young Kenyans with technical and vocational skills. The institution has about 18,000 students. However, Mr. Speaker, recent reports have raised concerns about the financial mismanagement within the institution, which, coincidentally, Mr. Speaker, and I'm sure somebody knew that this question was coming to this House, the principal who these allegations have been leveled against has just been transferred to another institution. Mr. Speaker, the Auditor General's reports and other investigative findings from these institutions have highlighted significant financial discrepancies, including misappropriation of student fees, unauthorized expenditures, delays in infrastructure project completions, and as a result, much need to be explained. The abrupt transfer of the principal raises serious questions about accountability and whether this move aims to shield individuals from scrutiny who have conducted and practiced in malpractices which are leading to our institution's failures. Mr. Speaker, in my statement, The committee should therefore establish the reasons for the principal's transfer and whether it was linked to the ongoing financial investigations within this institution. Number two, Mr. Speaker, I would want the committee to investigate the financial operations of the Kisii National Polytechnic over the past 3 financial years, and if need be, conduct a forensic audit to determine the extent of any misappropriation of funds. Number three, Mr. Speaker, the committee should outline the measures being implemented by the Ministry of Education to enhance accountability, transparency, good governance at this very institution. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, I would like the committee to specify the actions in place to hold the officials of this institution accountable, including the former principal, should any of these allegations of financial mismanagement become confirmed. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me an opportunity on these 2 questions.
Very well. Senator Madago.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Finance and Budget regarding the value-added tax reimbursements to bakeries and confectionaries. In the statement, the committee should provide a list of all bakery and confectionery business registered with the Kenya Revenue Authority. 2, table a report on all VAT reimbursements, claims already paid for financial year 2023-2024 for the registered companies in the bakery and confectionery business. And 3, provide data on the total amount of VAT collected from these companies in the financial year 2023-2024. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I understand you have 2 more statements. It's 1 statement? Okay, fine. That's okay. I can see several senators have lined up in my screen. I don't know for to make comments on the statements. Okay, we can spend another 25 minutes to do that. Let's start with the Senator Okechendi. 2 minutes each, 2 minutes only.
2 minutes. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I wanted to make a statement, support the statement. I wanted to support the statement made by Senator Cherargei on the state of Kapsabet County Referral Hospital and other health facilities in Nandi County. And Mr. Speaker, close to my heart is the issue of medicine. I think, Mr. Speaker, this probably should call for a serious inquiry into what is happening in Nandi, because what is happening, Mr. Speaker, is that there is a lot of conduit business that is happening in this hospital. It cannot be that every single time, Mr. Speaker, that we rise in this house, it is synonymous that every single referral hospital in this country, people are being sent to go and buy medicine from outside their hospitals, Mr. Speaker. It's an issue that has been raised in this house severally, and I think we are losing the script if we cannot do a proper investigation. And the good investigation should start with Nandi County. Because what is happening is that people are losing lives because you are diagnosed and found to be sick with simple diseases, and you just can't get medicine because people are trading with medicine in these counties. Mr. Speaker, even in my own county of Migori County, today if you go to Migori Referral Hospital, Mr. Speaker, people get to the hospital, they are diagnosed with simple diseases, and then they are told to go and buy medicine outside the hospital. What is it that is happening, Mr. Speaker? If Senate does not take the action of actually doing a proper inquiry into this conduit that is going on of drug selling by people who are within government in those counties and doctors who are within those hospitals, Mr. Speaker, we're never going to save this country. And even the issue of medical interns who are outside here that Senator Chege has touched on here, Mr. Speaker. It also goes without saying that these medical interns constantly do operations in our hospital.
Yes, next is Senator Joe Newton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to make a comment on the statement by Senator Catherine Muma, Mr. Speaker, regarding the delay in approval of payments by SHA, Mr. Speaker. This is a matter of national concern, and this is a matter, Mr. Speaker, that we have really conversed about, that we have problems with SHA. But unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, everybody has been denying that there are problems with SHA. None other than the President himself on Sunday accepted that we have problems with SHA. And this means then that SHA has not been working, at least on the part of processing payment, Mr. Speaker. And I think the committee should be able to invite everybody that has a say in this particular matter, because, Mr. Speaker, Kenyans are dying in hospitals. Kenyans are not able to access health care because of problems with payment by SHA, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, allow me also to comment very fast on the statement by Senator Murango about the incorporation of arts and sports in CBC, Mr. Speaker. This is something very important because, again, Mr. Speaker, by the end of this year, we will be transitioning to grade 10, where learners are supposed to pick the pathways in which now they're going to specialize, Mr. Speaker. And we need to know exactly then what the arrangements by the ministry is, so that as we place learners in the arts and sports science pathway, then, Mr. Speaker, we will be able to have done what we should do to these learners. And the medical cover by teachers, Mr. Speaker, depending on, according to Senator Murango's.
Senator Beatrice Akin.
Honorable Speaker, as I rise to support the statement by Senator Cherargei, I keep on asking myself, Honorable Speaker, that for how long will medics be on the streets in this country for medical issues to be attended to, Honorable Speaker? That, Honorable Speaker, those medics on the streets, as we are seated here, would have been in hospitals attending to Kenyans. And even as they are on the streets, Honorable Speaker, I know there are patients lining up waiting for their services. Honorable Speaker, I support that statement must be looked into. And secondly, I support the Senator Murango's statement on the challenges facing teachers' medical cover in the country. Honorable Speaker, every other day we are debating on issues of teachers. If it is not their medical cover, Honorable Speaker, it is about discrimination of their hardship allowance. It is about some hardships that teachers go through in this country. Honorable Speaker, teachers, not only teachers, but even the police officers have had challenges with their medical covers. And these are key public servants that really provide noble services to the people of Kenya. Honorable Speaker, let the issues of teachers be sorted to. Let the issue of their medical covers be sorted to. I've often come in handy to help certain teachers and I know all of us have done the same. When teachers are in hospital and they have difficulties assessing their medical covers. Honorable Speaker, let us treat teachers as honorable people also in this country with the dignity they deserve, because it is from the knowledge that they give that a number of us are even in the house.
Senator Esther Okenyuri.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity. I want to begin by supporting Senator Onyonka's statement on Mrs. Vichanga, who is being evicted from her matrimonial. Oh, Mr. Speaker, this is not an isolated case in Kisii County. We have so many of these similar cases. In fact, there is one in Bomachoge Chache, which is similar. And I want to fault the ministry on this, because the ministry is failing on sensitization for succession issues. So many other families in Kisii are not willing to undertake succession because lack of information. Mr. Speaker, I also want to support the statement by Senator Mrango on medical cover for teachers. I was attending a funeral last weekend in Omo Socho in Bomachoge Chache constituency, and teachers from that funeral were in serious cries of why this is actually happening at this time, Mr. Speaker. We do not want to be a country that only understands the language of civil strife. Let us listen to the pleas of people and act accordingly, Mr. Speaker, because the decisions we make in this House are life and death decisions. Thank you.
Senator Aminda Kibwana.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to support Senator Tabitha's statement on the sexual harassment and intimidation and discrimination of the union domestic workers. It's really unfortunate, Mr. Speaker, that that issue, in fact, in this era exists. It's unfortunate that our girls who go out there to work, to earn their living, are harassed, they're intimidated, and we need to speak up. We need to speak up. Mr. Speaker, there are many trainings that have been done for such workers, yet it has not, helped. These agents who insist on is it facilitating or transporting or doing whatever with our girls out there in different countries, and especially Middle East, it has really become an eyesore. It is unfortunate, Mr. Speaker, and this needs to be called to a stop. Mr. Speaker, I would also want to support Senator Cherargeei's statement on the shortage of in Kapsabet County Referral Hospital on health facilities. Mr. Speaker, when we went round during our tour with the health committee, we realized hospitals don't have drugs, hospitals don't have oxygen plant, yet even the gas containers are empty,
Yeah, the time available to you is only 2 minutes. So you choose what to... Senator Seki Lenku Olekanal.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I also rise to support a statement from by Senator Mutinda on the same issue of sexual harassment on staff of the institution that has been mentioned in the statement. Honorable Speaker, this issue has occurred in different forms within a period of 1 week or so. I remember we had a similar problem in Magadi last week, Honorable Speaker, where we had a very serious case where members of Kajiado area of Magadi, Soda, has been terrorized by none other but somebody called Lorgali. And we had the same problem. I think this is a very serious issue. We really need to pray that God will intervene to our young men and even men who are forcing people. And these things, sometimes it's very important that people to understand that these things, you need to follow the right procedure. Otherwise, I also want to support the Honorable Morango statement on the teachers' medical cover. Honorable Speaker, it's not just teachers. It is almost the entire public service. We have a very big problem now in Kenya where police are not covered. And even they are covered, there is no remuneration, there is no money paid to the insurance companies by government itself. You remember when we had the cabinet secretary here of health, she couldn't explain herself for us to understand why government is not paying NHIF or even SHA. They have their own ways of.
Senator Agnes Kavidu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity. I want to comment on Senator Cherenkai's statement about the General Hospital and Muma's statement also about SHA. Mr. Speaker, when our people go to hospitals, they end up going to buy every kind of medicine from outside. And you wonder where the money that is sent to counties go to. Mr. Speaker, these two statements must be checked properly. Others are suffering because of SHA. SHA is not working, and it's taking such a long process for it to be seen from the hospitals and patients being treated. Mr. Chair, I also want to comment about the statement of Murango about the teachers' insurance cover. Mr. Speaker, if there are no teachers in this country, Mr. Speaker, you cannot be seated where you are on that seat of a speaker. Teachers do a lot of work, and that is why we are here. That is why even presidents are there. That is why every institution has people to work in those institutions. So this issue of covers for teachers must be checked, Mr. Speaker. I also want to comment on Senator Onyonka's statement about the widow who was kicked out of her home. Mr. Speaker, widows are suffering in the whole country. Once their husbands die, they are kicked out of their homes, and this statement must be checked and widows protected by this country. Mr. Speaker, I thank you for the opportunity.
Senator Chalge.
Mr. Speaker, I just want to support statement on teachers' medical cover by Senator Onyonga, Mr. Speaker, and agree that teachers suffer. If they are not fighting for hardship allowance, they are fighting for medical cover. If they are not fighting for medical cover, they are fighting for CBC implementation, Mr. Speaker. And I'm happy the Chair of Education, the brand new chair, she's in the house. And her full. Mr. Speaker, the sad thing, when teachers retire, they use their retirement years to chase around the benefits from Teacher Service Commission. It is very unfortunate as a country. We are never grateful to teachers, Mr. Speaker. So this issue of medical cover must be addressed, Mr. Speaker. This is a crisis to teachers. I know of a number of teachers who are suffering, Mr. Speaker, because no one is taking care of the employer, which is supposed to be the Teacher Service Commission, Mr. Speaker, should be protecting teachers. But they are the oppressors, Mr. Speaker, the Teacher Service Commission. They should be facilitating, Mr. Speaker. Even the police officers, even as they protect us, their medical cover is in chaos, Mr. Speaker, that should be addressed. So I support this statement on medical cover, Mr. Speaker. Let teachers be given what rightfully belongs to them. It's not a privilege, it is the right under the Constitution. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Senator Kale Nyam.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to support the statement by Senator Tabitha Mutinda on sexual harassment in Kudeia, the Kenya Union Domestic Hotels and Educational Institution and Hospital Workers Union. Mr. Speaker, the Sexual Offences Act describes any sexual advances that are from a co-worker or as a person who is senior to you in employment that they are supposed to know are unwanted or had every reason to know that the sexual advances are unwanted. Mr. Speaker, in this day and age, it's very unfortunate that we are talking about this old age practice that was addressed those many years ago, and it's been a while since I had such allegations. I want to add the Committee for Labor to thoroughly investigate this issue and recommend charging and prosecution of the culprit, Mr. Speaker. I also want to recommend that the Sexual Offences Act include in its definition for sexual harassment comments under sexual comments in social media, Mr. Speaker. Today, as women, we will agree that there is a lot of sexual insults in social media when you make a post on anything that has nothing to do with sex or is not even.
Senator Mgatana Danson.
Bwana Spika, ningependa kutoa maoni kuhusu statement ya Mheshimiwa Senator Catherine Muma kuhusu janga la madawa ya kulevya hasa kwa vijana wetu. Bwana Spika, ningependa kamati wakiwa wanaangalia swala hili wajaribu pia kuangalia vile hali ilivyo haswa wakati wa likizo. Wananchi wengi wanajua ya kwamba, na haswa katika kaunti yangu, watoto wanajifundisha kula miraa, kuvuta sigara wakati watoto wameenda likizo. Tunataka kujua wakati hii kamati inafanya investigation yake, wajaribu pia kuangalia ni pesa ngapi zinazotumika na kada kwa upande wa mashule, na ni vipi ambavyo budget hii inaweza kutumika kwa upande wa mashule ili watoto waweze kufundishwa heshima na namna ya kuishi kuhusu utumiaji wa hizi dawa za kulevya. Bwana Spika, pia unakumbuka kuna wakati ambao aliyekuwa makamu wa rais alikuwa anahusika sana na suala hili. Tunangependa kujua hicho kitengo ama zile pesa ambazo alikuwa anafanya mikutano nayo zilikuwa ni pesa ngapi, zilitumika sehemu gani? Maana inaonekana kama baada ya yeye kuondoka hiyo program imenyamaza. Tunataka kujua kwamba katika Kenya sahihi nani anashughulikia swala hili la watoto wetu na vijana wetu wakipotea kwa mambo ya madawa ya kulevya, haswa wakati shule zinafungwa na watoto wako kwa likizo.
Senator Olekina Ledama.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to comment on two statements. Let me begin with the statement by the distinguished senator from Kirinyaga County in regards to the status of medical cover for teachers. Mr. Speaker, right outside, we're hearing demonstrations. Those are interns, interns, doctors, who are also raising concerns about their welfare. The issue of welfare on teachers is something very, very important. And I really do hope that the new chair of the Education Committee will take this matter of insurance, because we know insurance is where a lot of people get money for free. So it is something that we as the entire House must now come and sit down and finalize this issue of benefits. Senator Gay, when he was making his submissions, contributing to this issue of teachers, he raised an issue which is very, very important. My own sister retired from the teaching service about 3 years ago. And Mr. Speaker, I'll request for just one more minute. And until today, she's still chasing teachers and treasury for her to get her pension. If you don't care about welfare of people, when you go there to treasury, you are told there is a voucher, you'll be given your money. Really, we need to think about our society. We need to be serious about how we can support our society on this matter. So I support that statement. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, very briefly, this issue of drugs not reaching hospitals. I want to let the House know that this afternoon I will be meeting with the Cabinet Secretary in charge of education, the Director of Medical Services, and other stakeholders to be able to discuss this issue of KEMSA, the issue of drugs reaching the patients, because this statement raised by Senator Gay emphasized on the statement that I raised, the statement that was...
30 seconds.
Thank you. The statement brought about by Senator Cherargei for my health committee re-emphasized the issue that I raised, the issue that Kenyans raised, and the issue that Senator Momo raised in terms of KEMSA on their ability to be able to take drugs all the way to level 2 hospital. If you now hear that there is a problem of drugs in Nandi County, tomorrow it will be Laikipia County, it will be Nyandarua County, it will be Kirinyaga County. All these we have to have a solution so that if shared does not work.
Senator Derito John.
Bwana Spika, nataka kuunga mkono taarifa ya Murango kuhusu bima ya walimu, ya afya ya walimu. Bwana Spika, ni jambo la kuvunja moyo sana ikiwa walimu wetu ambao wanafanya kazi kwa bidii sana, alafu unapata baada ya wale kufanya kazi kwa bidii sana, hatimaye akienda hospitalini hawezi kupata matibabu kwa sababu bima yake haijalipwa. Si hayo tu Bwana Spika, kwa sababu taarifa iliyoletwa na Senator Cherargei inasema ya kwamba ukitembelea hospitali zetu baada ya kukosa bima, ukienda hospitali hakuna dawa. Na ilhali sisi kama seneti tumegawa pesa hapa, mgao wa pesa na kuzipeleka katika kaunti zetu. Bwana Spika, tunaonekana kama kwamba seneti hatufanyi kazi yoyote, kwa sababu nakumbuka juzi tu seneta wa Narok Olekina alileta mswada hapa kusema kuhusu madeni, vile ambavyo madeni yanapaswa kulipwa. Bwana Spika, ukienda hospitalini unaambiwa dawa haziwezi zikapelekwa na KEMSA kwa sababu madeni hayajalipwa. Ilhali sisi tunaendelea kupeleka pesa katika gatuzi zetu. Bwana Spika, inaonekana ni kama zile pesa hazifanyi kazi ambayo zinapaswa kufanya. Bwana Spika, kuhusu taarifa iliyoletwa na Muma, mambo ya madawa ya kulevya na mihadarati, Bwana Spika, ni na seneta wa kutoka kaunti ya seneta amesema vizuri kuuliza ya kwamba wakati naibu wa rais Mheshimiwa Rigathi Gachagua alipokuwa naibu wa rais alikuwa na ile kikapu cha pesa alizokuwa kutumia kupigana hii mihadarati. Bwana Spika, kwani alienda na ile kikapu? Kwa hivyo naye na
Senator Mwinyi Haji Mohamed.
Mombasa akalaunch vita dhidi ya madawa, lakini ilikuwa ni kama upepo tu wa kupita. Baada ya hapo hatujaona jambo lolote kubwa ambalo limefanyika kuweza kupambana na madawa haya. Vile vile Mheshimiwa Spika, japokuwa serikali imeanzisha vituo vya kutibu wagonjwa, kwa mfano pale Miritini kiko kimoja, na serikali ya kaunti ya Mombasa iko na kingine pale Freya Town, vituo hivi Mheshimiwa Spika havitoshi, na inapaswa Mheshimiwa Spika swala hili liangaliwe zaidi, kwa sababu hata mule katika vile vituo Mheshimiwa Spika madawa bado yanauzwa, na mara nyingi mambo ya usalama, mambo ya polisi ni mambo ambayo yako kwa serikali kuu. Kwa hivyo serikali za kaunti haiwezi kufanya jambo lolote kuweza kupambana na mihadharati kikamilifu ikiwa polisi wanatepetea katika kazi hiyo. Mheshimiwa Spika, Kenya hakuna kiwanda cha madawa, lakini madawa haya yanaingia kupitia mipaka yetu, na mipaka hii iko na polisi, iko na migration, iko na DCI, iko na watu wa usalama wa nchi. Kwa hivyo tutashangaa Mheshimiwa Spika, madawa bado yanaweza kuvuja yakaingia yakaja yakaathiri vijana wetu. Kwa Mheshimiwa Spika, mbali na kwamba kamati
That's the end of statements hour. We go to the next order.
Order number 8, the County Government's Additional Allocations Bill, Senate Bills number 1 of 2021, first reading. A bill for an act of parliament to provide for the additional allocations to county governments for the 2024-2025 financial year and the responsibilities of national and county governments pursuant to such allocations and for connected purposes.
Honorable Senators, I want to reorganize the business appearing in the order paper by using standing order 45-2. To reorganize as follows: order number 9, 10, 11, 12 will be deferred. So on order number 13, I don't know, clerk, if we have quorum to put the question. So, Honorable Senators, Senator Mambe Nfaki. Okay. Oh, next order, sorry.
Order number 13, motion, report of the Standing Committee on Education on a petition to the Senate regarding the discrimination of Teacher Service Commission on payments of hardship and enhanced house allowance to some teachers in Kilifi and Taita Taveta counties. Question to be put.
Honourable Senators, I put the question that the Senate adopts the report of the Standing Committee on Education on a petition to the Senate regarding the discrimination by Teacher Service Commission, TSC, on payment of hardship and enhanced house allowances to some teachers in Kilifi and Taita Taveta counties, laid on the table of the Senate on Tuesday, 8 October 2024. Will as many as of this opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Okay, let's start with order number 16, then we'll go back to 14 and 15 later. Next order.
Order number 16, motion, report of the Standing Committee on Trade, Industrialization and Tourism on a petition to the Senate regarding alleged fraudulent dealings at Diageo PLC, East African Kenya Breweries Limited, and the Kenya Breweries and UDV Kenya Limited.
Chairperson, Standing Committee on Trade, Industrialization and Tourism, Senator Okenyuri. I was almost calling out Senator Seki.
Yeah. His work still speaks for itself, Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm standing in for the Chair Trade Industrialization Committee. And we, on this petition concerning fraudulent dealings at Diageo PLC, East Africa Breweries Limited, Kenya Breweries, and UDV Kenya Limited, submitted by Senator Wakili Hilary Sigei on behalf of Mr. Rono Nicholas from Bomet County. Mr. Speaker, the mandate and establishment of the committee under Article 124 of the Constitution of Kenya provide for the establishment of committees where each House of Parliament may establish committees.
Okenyuri, you move the motion. You move.
Okay, I want to move this motion by actually giving a background.
Just get assistance from the.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to move that the Senate adopts the report of the Standing Committee on Trade, Industrialization and Tourism on a petition to the Senate regarding alleged fraudulent dealings at Diageo PLC, East African Breweries Limited, Kenya Breweries, and UDV Kenya Limited, laid on the table of the Senate on Thursday, 5th December 2024. So now that I have moved that, I want to give a background of this petition. At a sitting held on 30th May of 2023, a petition was reported by Senator Wakili Hilary Sigei on behalf of the petitioner, Mr. Rono Nicholas from Bomet County, pursuant to Standing Order 2236-2 regarding fraudulent dealings at Diageo PLC, East Africa Breweries Limited, Kenya Breweries, and UDV Kenya Limited. And specifically, the petitioner was highlighting the following, that there has been controversial majority acquisition of East African Breweries by Guinness PLC in 2000, which was strongly resisted by the people of the Republic of Kenya through Parliament. The other concern was having knowledge of the dealings at Capital Markets Authority, Kenya Revenue Authority, and the National Treasury and East African Breweries Limited have not acted to correct or stop fraudulent activities of shareholding and acquisitions. 3, to deflect some of the backlash, Guinness PLC made a pledge to cede back most of the acquired shares to Kenyans in due course. 4, recent acquisition of the extra 15% in EABL is a fraud upon the people of Kenya, as the shares are being acquired for an onward transfer to a new buyer at a much higher value for the benefit of shareholders and to the detriment of Kenyan shareholders who will be denied the benefit of the higher price that Diageo will get from onward sale shortly. 5th, employees of EABL have been bullied, coerced, threatened, and otherwise intimidated to sell their share options to Diageo PLC, which is against the laws of Kenya. Then there was an onward sale of Diageo interest in EABL has agreed with Heineken Castle Group, and purchase of an additional 15% shares is meant to ensure that Heineken Castle Group of controlling stake in East Africa Breweries Limited after the onward sale. The Kenya Breweries Limited, which was locally owned, possessed massive real estate in Kenya that comprised staff houses, staff complexes, go-downs, and warehouses, factories, and other assets that had employed over 6,000 Kenyans. EABL has corruptly disposed most of its properties and repatriated the sale proceeds to Diageo PLC, and that EABL is now a mere shell of itself, employing a paltry 600 employees. And finally, the petitioner had made efforts to have this matter addressed to relevant authorities, of all which have been unsuccessful, and that this matter was not pending before any court of law or any constitutional body. And the petitioner therefore prayed that the Senate investigates with view to recommending amendment to the Capital Markets Authority Act to cushion the shareholders from future manipulation. The committee acknowledged the contribution by the petitioner, Capital Markets Authority, East Africa Breweries, and the Competition Authority and the Kenya Revenue Authority for their detailed submission to the committee, which made consideration of the petition a success. Further, the committee thanks the offices of the Speaker and the Clerk of the Senate for the support extended to the committee in execution of its mandate. I also appreciate members of the committee for their patience, sacrifice, and commitment to public service, which enable the committee complete the assigned task. To enable a judicious disposal of the petition, the committee conducted an investigation and engaged with all relevant institutions and persons of interest in addressing issues raised in the petition as follows. We had the petitioner, Capital Markets Authority, Competition Authority of Kenya, Kenya Revenue Authority, and the Kenya Breweries Limited. And the following are the submissions we drew as members of the committee. So following its consideration, the submission and evidence provided, the committee made the following. With respect to the 1997 EABL acquisition by Guinness PLC, EABL sought to raise Kenyan shillings 1.5 billion from existing shareholders through a rights issue. And at that time, the Guinness PLC held 25.06% of the ordinary shares of EABL and was the underwriter for the rights issue, and subsequently the shareholding of Guinness PLC increased from 46%, thereby making it the largest single shareholder in EABL. The other recommendation, the other observation is, following an internal reorganization in 2000, Diageo Kenya, a subsidiary of the Diageo PLC, increased its shareholding in EABL to 50.03% through the consolidation of shares from Guinness Overseas Limited and Diageo Holdings Netherlands BV, with no change in beneficial ownership. C, in October 2022, Diageo PLC announced plans to raise its stake in EABL from 50.03% to 65%. The Capital Markets Authority approved this acquisition on January 23, 2023, which reduced local shareholding in EABL to 35%. The tender offer was oversubscribed, receiving requests for 143.52 million shares against the 118.39 million that were sought. The attractive offer included eligibility for an interim dividend of 3.5 Kenyan shillings per share. Diageo's acquisition of additional 14.97% stake did not classify as a merger under the Competition Act, since this did not change beneficial ownership. Diageo was already a majority shareholder. F, in Kenya's alcoholic beverage sector, where there are no statutory limits on foreign ownership, Diageo's increased to a 16% stake control without restrictions, and there being no evidence that Diageo Kenya intended to acquire shares of resale to Henken Castle Group or any other buyer. G, EABL has sold several assets as part of its realignment strategy. However, allegations that these sales were to finance operations remain unproven. The other observation was that the Competition Authority of Kenya received complaints regarding anti-competitive practices by KBL and EABL, holding 90%, necessitating stricter enforcement of penalties under Competition Act. I, EABL has unresolved task disputes with the Kenya Revenue Authority and at various stages, but there are no pending disputes involving Diageo PLC. The committee then recommends that, 1, the Capital Markets Authority to monitor compliance with the capital markets, that's public offers, listings, and disclosures under Regulations 2023, and within 6 months of tabling of this report, submit a report to the committee on the status of implementation and compliance with the said regulations. The second recommendation, Capital Markets Authority engages and sensitizes the public on the provisions of the regulations in 1 above and demonstrates the initiatives taken in this regard in the report to be submitted to the committee. 3, the Competition Authority of Kenya should enforce the pecuniary penalty outlined under Section 24(3) of the Competition Act of 2010 for abuse of dominant position to deter breach of competition rules and promote fair marketing practices for all players. Enforcement of the pecuniary penalty is likely to be more expedient and deterring repeated abuse of dominance. And finally, Competition Authority of Kenya within 6 months of tabling of this report submits a report to the Senate on reported cases of abuse of dominant position in the period between 2023-2024 and the respective measures and decisions taken by the authority to resolve the cases. Mr. Speaker, sir, it's now my pleasant duty and privilege on behalf of the committee to present this report of the Standing Committee on Trade, Industrialization and Tourism on its consideration of the petition by Mr. Rono Nicholas concerning fraudulent shareholding activities and illegal acquisition of East African Breweries Limited, Diageo PLC, signed by the Senate Standing Committee on Trade, Tourism and Industrialization Chair. Thank you.
Seconding your motion.
No, it has to be a member, right? Mr. Speaker, sir, allow me to request Senator Cherargei to second this report.
Senator Cherargei Samson.
Mr. Speaker, sir, thank you very much. As I raise to second, I want to commend the new Vice Chairperson of Trade, Honorable Esther Okenyuri. I think she's doing a good job. Just landed the other day, Mr. Speaker, as the Vice Chair. I was told she was elected and opposed, and therefore she's doing a good job. Mr. Speaker, the issue of East Africa breweries, which is very critical. ABL, Mr. Speaker, is one of our trademark. I remember when I was growing up, Mr. Speaker, one of the products that EABL produces was being told, pumzika baada ya kazi. And you remember there was decency in consumption of alcohol, Mr. Speaker. At that time, the market had not been perforated, Mr. Speaker, by interesting organizations. But, Mr. Speaker, ABL is one of the renowned companies in this country. It's synonymous with Kenya. Mr. Speaker, there is a funny story as I second and make a few comments on this issue of shareholding and management of EAPLC, East Africa Breweries and Guinness. Mr. Speaker, there is a preacher who came from America. One of my friends, and they were having, so that you know EABL is synonymous, Mr. Speaker, with, I changed the note to Madam Speaker, came, Madam Speaker, and while they were having lunch or evening dinner with a colleague friend, pastor, a pastor who is very close, and that preacher from America, after eating, he said, I would really want to drown, to wind it down with the Tusker, Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker. And therefore, everybody got shocked in the room, because where they come from, issues of taking after something light after, like Tusker, was not an issue, Mr. Speaker. This compliance of Capital Markets Authority on these regulations within 6 months, and I think it is also the role of delegated legislation must come up through Capital Markets Authority. Mr. Speaker, on this regulation, we should and be careful so that as we implement all these issues in establishment, Mr. Speaker, in the majority acquisition, we must have decency. Under the Companies Act, Mr. Speaker, there is a process, Madam Speaker, through the CMA, through the Company Act, and therefore the acquisition must be done within the law. So, Speaker, this is a public traded company, and therefore the shareholders and Kenyans have a role to play, because this is one of the companies that Kenya government has shares through the Ministry of Treasury and through Mr. Speaker. And therefore, Madam Speaker, on the issue of fraudulent acquisition of shares through Kenya, it's Guinness on the acquired shares to Kenyans, this should be looked at so that the acquisition should be done, because we don't want in the company law where people are getting more than 50%, it means they have the majority shareholding of that company. So, Speaker, shares should not be optional. You remember IPO, the initial public offer. We should not intimidate employees or people who own shares within the East Africa breweries or any other company. You remember when Safaricom did public sales of the shares through initial public offer, IPO, Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, it should have been within the freedom and the will of the people, Madam Speaker. And even EPL, we want EPL to be functional. We want EPL to have the law so that they produce a more decent, safe drinking. Because now what has happened, Madam Speaker, is the alcohol market has been infiltrated. Even in my county, Nandi, for example, Madam Speaker, and even across the country, there is proliferation of illicit brew that is destroying the lives of many young people, Mr. Speaker. It is killing them in terms of health. Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, sorry, it is also making them sterile. They cannot give birth or they cannot procreate. And the role of the man is to protect, promote, and procreate, Madam Speaker. So you can imagine the future of this country is bleak, where you're having young men who are shooting blanks, Madam Speaker. They cannot procreate because the alcohol, the illicit brew that is being sold does not meet standard. And therefore, the reason we are questioning, and I want to thank committee with these recommendations, under Capital Markets Authority in terms of shareholding and sales of shares, that it should be run above board. Because we want East Africa Breweries Limited to produce a more affordable drinks for even the people who do not have money. The reason people consume changa, the reason people consume illicit brew, like for example in Nandi County, Madam Speaker, the people are bringing illicit, which is even destroying the health. Madam Speaker, those people who are consuming illicit brew, if you meet them in the morning, Madam Speaker, they have grown fat. Not because they have eaten food, but because the alcohol poison that is being sold in this country. And I know Muranga has become a victim of such where you come from. I know Muranga where my brother Senator Joe Newto. And I want to advise him, as he even talks about the hills and criticize government on the issues of how the country should be run. He should also be pushing for the issues of getting safe and clean alcohol drink within even Muranga and across the country. So that, we don't need to have double standards. And I'm happy that he's talking about how shares should run, how the country should run. But he should not forget that many young people in Muranga and across the country are suffering because of consuming illicit brew that does not meet the safe and the standard that within Madam Speaker. So that we want East Africa to be run within the law, within the regulations, to produce affordable, I don't want to say cheap, affordable drink that cannot affect the health in terms of the functionality of the body and in terms of ensuring, Madam Speaker. So this acquisition, and I think the Capital Markets Authority should be in place. And Madam Speaker, I'm disappointed because all these organizations have been given power. Capital Markets Authority, there is what we call Competition Authority of Kenya, COFEC, which is Confederation of Protection of Consumers, Madam Speaker. We have left the Competition Authority and protection in terms of shares and running of our companies to big fish to take advantage of the situation. Madam Speaker, the issue of locally has employed over 6,000 Kenyans. Those include the employees, include also the distributors. And I remember, Madam Speaker, I saw the proprietor of Madam, the Deputy Majority Leader, Madam, the Senator of Nakuru, and she understands better how this business of selling alcohol and what have you in terms of distribution. We don't want also, we want EBL to be run above board, but not also to kill upcoming industries, because there is still a market that can be fulfilled. So these 6,000 employees that are both distributed, and I remember, Madam Speaker, if you, the yesteryear's billionaires of this country were, in fact, interestingly, EBL distributors. And therefore, this 6,000 workforce must be protected by all costs by ensuring that, Madam Speaker, that it becomes under sale, so that we don't just sell to international. I'm told there are the companies who want to sell. How, Madam Speaker, when you go to Tanzania, for example, when you want to set up a business, Tanzanian government will never allow you to have majority. You understand, because you are a senior counsel in this country. They will never allow you. What is the Attorney General of the Republic of Kenya doing? What is the company laws? We are very clear that no foreigner should own more than 50% of locally owned company. It is the law. But if you allow multinational companies to come and buy out, like what is happening in Kericho, can you believe some of these tea estates, either even in Del Monte, whether you have it here, issues of multinational teas, majority of shareholders are people who stay in London or America or other countries. Yet they are the ones, that is why when we have problems in terms of compensation, in terms of running of these companies, Madam Speaker, it is very sad. We might say Tanzania is weak in terms of economy, but they have protectionist mechanism. At Wesi, Madam Speaker, sorry for using the local, I wanted to say free liberal market, amasoko uhuru. With your indulgence, Madam Speaker, understanding on the number one, we should not allow our companies to have what we call free market or soko uhuru. It will not be very good, Madam Speaker. And therefore, in terms of recommendation, because this is a very brief issue of the committee, and through Diego Kenya, there was also what we call, there was 2 companies that were acquiring the Guineas public traded, and therefore, which means these shares, Madam Speaker, must be followed the law. And I want to warn companies, this issue of insider trading, they must meet, and you know, CMA, Capital Markets Authority, is the regulatory body. What are they doing? This is their job. Madam Speaker, our business in the Senate is to pass the law. The implementers must do their job so that we can have, and the reason some of us are pushing to ensure that East Africa Breweries Limited must be run above board. I have told you the reason. Most of our young people are dying because the alcohol that is being sold in market is alcohol that does not meet the standards of health, in terms of health, both of consumption and even the functionality of the human. And even, I want to challenge the Trade Committee through the Vice Chair. Let's also invite ABL. You should form an inquiry, because I'm told they are selling assets. They are also doing contracting farming. You are aware, Madam Speaker, where they come to your farm and do contracting farming for you to produce barley, which is majorly used as part of processing of alcohol. So contract farming, we must be told that what EBL is doing. I have met farmers who feel that they were contracted by EBL to do barley, but after some time, their contract has never been honored, Madam Speaker, in going into the future. The issue of distribution and the issue of asset sale, we are aware EBL have sold a lot of assets, but this is a public traded company. They should be accountable that how many assets are, like Kenya Railways, for example. I was here the other day, Madam Speaker, on the issue of Kenya Railways. Kenya Railways is a public company, but the MD and management of Kenya Railways are running it like a personal property, where they are leasing property in the major towns, where they are leasing things of Kenya Railways, because advantage of Kenya Railways, Madam Speaker, they have a lot of land. So these publicly traded companies must be held accountable. They cannot, and even under the principle of company law, it can reach a position where we are lifting the veil. I know you understand that principle. Even as I wish Senator Roba and other Muslims all the best during this month of Ramadan, Madam Speaker, as I wish Senator Party Leader of UDM, Senator Ali Roba, Captain, His Excellency, all the best, and other Muslims across the country, Ramadan and Holy Month of Ramadan, we must lift the veil. There is a principle in law, and you and me understand very well, that, and of course our lecturers, SDC Kishangi, understands this, that we must lift the veil to know what is this piece. And that is why I destroyed the economy, Madam Speaker. Because the moment you don't lift the veil, you never know the insider trading and corruption and bad governance within the companies that you, and this is one of the reasons, and Senator Mongatana will tell you, the governance, corporate governance running of companies is a bigger challenge going into the future. Madam Speaker, the final point is on the issue of tax. I think Kenya Revenue Authority should be on high alert to ensure, even as we trade, even as shares are being sold. Madam Speaker, you are aware, and the members of Finance Committee are here. We are told the budget of Kenya, and we are doing budget policy statement, is 4.2 trillion. I'm told KRA is projecting to collect like almost 3 trillion in terms of on-source revenue. Not on-source, but the taxes. The public debt, Madam Speaker, is more than 10.5 trillion Kenyan shillings. We are paying 1.something trillion. It means Kenya in the financial year of 2025-2026 will have a deficit budget. So we cannot allow such companies to get away in terms of share trading without taxes being paid to KRA so that we can have revenue. You can see the government has a lot of pressure to develop the country. Where I come from, Madam Speaker, and I want to thank His Excellency the President, on Thursday we were launching Koitalel Samoei University in Nandi Hills town. The reason it was delayed is because lack of funding, Madam Speaker, where we are constructing to a university called Koitalel Samoei University, one of our legends in Nandi and across the Kalenjin community. And he was also a freedom fighter, the Koitalel Samoei. And therefore, we are building a new university in Nandi Hills town, Madam Speaker, that will be used for many things. For example, in Nandi, we need a lot of tarmac roads across Muranga, many other areas. But KRA must be on high alert to allow the companies to pay taxes in terms of transactions that we are talking about, Madam Speaker. So I want to challenge the Committee of Trade to come up with these regulations, capital markets, and ensure that there is compliance through the capital markets public offers listing and disclosures. The companies must disclose, and therefore EBL cannot run from this trading. They must be held accountable. They must pay taxes. They must tell Kenyans what East Africa Breweries Limited is doing, because it's a public company. The government has shares, and the government must be, and the public must be aware, because this is a company that should be run. Madam Speaker, even these 6 months, they should ensure that there are measures to be taken, and therefore I challenge Capital Markets Authority to take charge. I also challenge the Competition Authority of Kenya should ensure that there is fair competition and fair market practices within this sector and any other companies who might want to do trading in the country. Madam Speaker, it is a pleasure to second this motion that was brought, that was done by Nicholas Rono, that the petition that came, and I want to thank the committee, membership of the committee, the old and the new membership. I saw the former chair, he was here, and I would really have wanted to hear his thoughts, because largely most of this work was found by the previous Trade Committee. With all those many remarks, Madam Speaker, which are very many, I don't want to say it a tradition of Kenya, few remarks, I beg to second, and I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Senators. Honourable Senators, I propose the question that the Senate adopts the report of the Standing Committee on Trade, Industrialization and Tourism on a petition to the Senate regarding alleged fraudulent dealings at Diageo PLC, East African Breweries Limited, Kenya Breweries, and New DV Kenya Limited, laid on the table of the Senate on Thursday, 5th December 2024. I will now call upon Senator Danson Buya Mongatana to contribute to this motion.
I want to thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to make comments on this petition and this motion that is before the House. Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, what this petitioner, Mr. Rono Nicholas, is petitioning this Senate is a complaint, Madam Speaker, of the failure by the Capital Markets Authority, of the failure by the Competition Authority of Kenya, on what their decisions or lack of them are costing the people on the ground. Madam Speaker, I know what Mr. Rono is talking about. He has said there were 6,000 employees in the East African Breweries Limited. Now it's a shell with only 600 employees or thereabouts. Madam Speaker, when I was younger, very young, I grew up in Mombasa. And one of the big companies in Mombasa, big employers, was Kenya Breweries Limited. Madam Speaker, when we were growing up, my father even left the government to come and work in the medical department of Kenya Breweries Limited. So I know when I say that Kenya Breweries Limited was a big employer, a beacon of light in the economy of Mombasa. Madam Speaker, it is true, like what this petition says, that it owned real estates, it owned a lot of property. In fact, Madam Speaker, senior employees were carried by vehicles to work. People used to live in big estates. It was a happy, happy time. Then, Madam Speaker, restructuring started happening. By then, our parents had already retired. But, Madam Speaker, when you look at it, the pain it caused many people there, the suffering of people who are earning very good money in very stable economic environment, then all of a sudden they have nothing, Madam Speaker. No prospects of going to get even half the salaries to any other opportunities that may exist in Mombasa. Madam Speaker, the buses, Madam Speaker, the bottling companies that used to come and go in the East African plant, they repair people. Madam Speaker, those who used to sell fuel and diesel to keep that company, Kenya Power itself that used to earn a living and all those fees from that company. Madam Speaker, I was shocked when I became a little older and visited that place, which was bustling with life. Madam Speaker, it is dead, completely dead. Old dilapidated buildings. Madam Speaker, many of us who grew up knowing what KBL was, it even had a very strong football team in the entire Mombasa town, Madam Speaker. So, Madam Speaker, it is a failure on the Capital Markets Authority, and I hope the Minister of Trade is listening where he is, that the people there, they make approval of transfer of shares, that the CEO there doesn't go down to where these companies are. They just approve purchase of shares and then people lose jobs. Those who are trading with KBL, they lost jobs. The business people who are sustaining life and limb, they lost all those business opportunities. The Capital Markets Authority sitting in Nairobi, they just approve the transfer of shares, Madam Speaker, without even moving to where these companies were producing, without the principle of public participation. Madam Speaker, I entirely agree that we need to look at this law again. My colleague here has mentioned that in the economies within East Africa here, they have regulations on how people from outside can buy shares into companies in this country. Madam Speaker, even if the owners of those companies are making money, how can it be that because of your greed, you just sell a company and then 6,000 people become unemployed, Madam Speaker? And Capital Markets Authority sitting in Nairobi does not bother to go to Mombasa, does not bother to come here in Nairobi to see what is happening, and they just approve. They look at papers and they approve that let Diego buy this company, and then people become jobless. Madam Speaker, it is heartless. And this petition by Mr. Rono Nicholas, Madam Speaker, should trigger something within the soul of Kenya, that it is not just about making money. Even the people who start companies, it is not just about making money. The employees must be protected, Madam Speaker. People who are trading with those companies, especially when these companies become very big, Madam Speaker, they must be protected. And I really agree that we need to look afresh at the Capital Markets Authority. The CEO who is sitting there, those people who approved the killing of industry within Kenya, they are looking at papers and approving shares in Nairobi. Shame on you for creating poverty amongst families as people become millionaires and they take golden parachutes and they go home. Madam Speaker, I firmly agree that we need to look at the Capital Markets Authority Act and act on it so that we can protect the small people who are making a living out of these companies that are traded and shares are changed, and then effectively companies are killed. Madam Speaker, another major recommendation is about the Competition Authority of Kenya. Madam Speaker, I've had the fortune of serving at the Regional Authority on Competition Matters. I have served as a commissioner for 6 years in COMESA Competition Commission. This is the equivalent of COMESA competition. This is the equivalent of the Competition Authority of Kenya at the regional level. And Madam Speaker, I am shocked that the Competition Authority of Kenya has received complaints on abuse of dominant position in the market, and they have done nothing. Madam Speaker, according to this report, the Competition Authority of Kenya, they have received reports of abuse of dominant position by the East African Breweries Limited. And yet, they have done nothing about it. Madam Speaker, how can it be that a market player in Kenya today can abuse its dominant authority and its dominant position within the market against the Competition Authority of Kenya Act, and then nothing happens? Madam Speaker, what this Mr. Rono, the petitioner, is saying, he's saying that something is seriously very wrong, even in the Competition Authority of Kenya. Madam Speaker, abuse of dominant position is, in simple terms, you have a controlling or substantive share of the market within a country or within a region. And then you use your position to exercise your power and promote anti-competitive behavior within the market. What does that mean? Because you have the dominant position, you go and force people that if you're going to be trading with us, you must buy only our products. You're not going to buy another product. So distributors are tied up. This is called tying up agreements. So you tie up those people. Sometimes you abuse your dominant position by knowing that you have the money, you have the market share, you have the dominant position within the market share of the country or of the region. And so what do? You kill competition by doing something called predatory pricing. You do very small prices, not because of anything good, not because you want to help the market grow, but you do underpricing so that you can kill any competition. And Madam Speaker, EABL has been accused in this petition that they have abused their dominant position. They have underpriced. They have done tying agreements to make distributors only sell what they want. They have done criminal activities in the market in Kenya today. And Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, the Competition Authority of Kenya is here, seated there. And when you look at this recommendation, they are saying, Competition Authority of Kenya, this is number D, within 6 months of the tabling of this report, submit a report to the Senate on the reported cases of abuse of dominance from 2023 to 2024 and the respective measures and decisions taken by the authority to resolve those cases. What is this, Mr. Rono, the petitioner, saying? He is saying that the Competition Authority of Kenya is sitting down, it's not doing its job, it's sleeping on its job. That a petitioner has to come to the Trade Committee of the Senate to make the Competition Authority of Kenya do its job. Madam Speaker, this is saying that that authority as of now, and the CEO, I hope you are listening to me, and if you are not listening to me, wake up. I hope the PS will come and talk to you. You need to wake up. A Kenyan doesn't need to come to the Senate to make you do your work. What does it mean, Madam Speaker? It means these people have complained there and those people have done nothing. Madam Speaker, this petition and the recommendation of the Senate is an indictment on the Capital Markets Authority and its operations, how you can kill local industry and feel nothing about it, and it's an indictment on the Competition Authority of Kenya, how abuse of dominant position is happening in Kenya and you are doing nothing, that a petitioner has to move the Senate for you to do anything, and you are given 6 months to report. Madam Speaker, I would have gone further in my recommendation that the CEO who is sitting there at the Capital Markets Authority and the CEO sitting in the Competition Authority of Kenya, these two guys plus their boards, they must be investigated. And the minister who is listening to me today, can you do something about the board? Because I know the Competition Authority of Kenya has a board, the Capital Markets Authority has a board. Those people, if Kenya government has shares and has directors there, they must be reconstituted. A petitioner cannot come to the Senate to make you do your work. It means you people don't want to do the work or you are in compromised positions. And it is a shame, Madam Speaker, because what are we talking about? In real terms, 6,000 people have been sent home when they shouldn't have been sent home. If someone had sat down to say, wait a minute, what does the transfer of these shares mean? And Madam Speaker, the worst thing is they are transferring these shares to a company that is not Kenyan. It's an expatriate company. This company, this brewery company that is taking over all these shares, it's a South African company. And we are not saying we cannot trade, but you cannot acquire majority shares and then you start making decisions that are killing the economy of Kenya, Madam Speaker. Decisions that are having such negative impact on our people and the economy of this country. And CMA is just there, seated, and you approve. And Competition Authority of Kenya is just there, seated, not taking action against abuse of dominant position. Madam Speaker, I pray that this report will be implemented to the letter, and I pray that action will be taken. And I pray that in furtherance of this report, that there will be a requirement of the minister, the PS, those people who are in the Ministry of Trade to take action to protect our people. You know, someone is just sitting, is looking at their company. They have seen they are making money. They have seen the sales are doing well, and then they see they are being told to go home. Madam Speaker, it is just terrible. We cannot just sit here. And he can't explain, because that person who is working there as an accountant, he is working there as a small-time manager in one of these companies, he can't explain, why are we making so much money and then we are being told to go home after the company is being closed? Madam Speaker, we need to take these authorities that have been given the mandate to help create jobs, to help manage the economy, to take them to task. And these people, they must be punished, Madam Speaker. You know, even this report goes on to say that the Competition Authority of Kenya should enforce pecuniary penalty outlined under Section 24, subsection 3 of the Competition of Kenya of the Competition Act 2010 of Kenya. How can it be that the Senate must sit to tell you even the kind of punishment that you must execute against those who are creating trouble within the market in Kenya? It's terrible, Madam Speaker. And I was just putting this thing in perspective so that people can see that these guys are sleeping in their job, and the minister should wake up, bring disciplinary action against the board of the Kenya Competition Authority, the the Capital Markets Authority of Kenya. These people are not protecting Kenyans. They are just called Capital Markets Authority of Kenya, and they are not protecting Kenya. Competition Authority of Kenya, and you are not protecting Kenyans. People are suffering here. And those small people cannot understand. Kumbe, it is these approvals of transfer of shares that I've done, things they cannot even fathom. Because then they know they are just being paid this 50, 30, 100,000 and taking care of their families. Madam Speaker, let us be patriotic about our country. Let us, let us grow this economy. Let us not put people in charge of Capital Market Authority who are killing economies. Why should you approve selling of shares just to kill people's jobs? Why can't you be, conscientious enough just to visit and see what does it mean? Why can't you carry public participation so that what wanted people can see that you are listening to them and you hear it from the ground, not just the owners of the company. After all, the company is not just the owners, it's not just the directors. There are workers who are involved. There's management which is involved. Why didn't the Capital Market Authority make it its business to go down before approving these transfers, of shares? Why didn't it just go down to see who is going to be affected? Why not do public participation? Madam Speaker, I think the recommendations here are very strong, and I hope that the committee will take its time to bring the necessary amendments to the Capital Markets Authority Act and the regulations, so that at least one requirement must be, the board must visit to see what is the impact of their action. When they approve this, how many Kenyans are going to lose jobs? What are the guarantees being given to those who are working in case there is change of ownership? Why, Madam Speaker, should we make people suffer so much? And Madam Speaker, I pray that this committee will make a serious follow-up action on this matter, Madam Speaker. I pray that this committee will even write to the minister, the cabinet secretary and the permanent secretary to make follow-up actions on these two institutions, the Capital Markets Authority and the Competition Authority of Kenya, so that they can start being sensitive to what Kenyans are suffering. Madam Speaker, with those many remarks, I really want to thank the Trade Committee for taking their time to listen to the petition of Mr. Rono, and I really want to congratulate Mr. Rono Nicholas, who has taken his time to bring to the minds of Kenya what is happening inside the markets in this country, and the dirt that is going on, and the oppression of the common people who are doing these jobs in these companies around Kenya. Madam Speaker, I support this report of the committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator Mungatana. I now call upon I see there are no other senators who intend to contribute to this motion, so I'll call upon the mover of this report, Senator S.C. Okenyuri, to come and reply.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I first of all want to thank Senator Cherargei, who seconded this motion. He insightfully spoke about the major recommendations that have been proposed by members of this committee. And he surely has a grasp of what issues that the petitioner Nicholas Rono was raising. Madam Speaker, I also want to thank Senator Mungatana, the Tana River Senator, who has passionately spoken about the situation as it is. Madam Speaker, you can see the man-eat-man society we are in. In Swahili, if I say it, shamba la wanyama, well displayed by the contributions by the Tana River Senator. And I want to thank the members of the committee led by the outgoing chair, Senator Seki, who led this committee into investigating and listening to submission by the different stakeholders who are captured in this petition. And for surely taking their time and considering how lengthy and weighty this matter was, I want to specially thank them. And Madam Speaker, just to add a few comments. From the recommendations, you see there is a duration of 6 months, and I'm still a member of that committee and vice chair. So I want to commit that as a vice chair of this committee led by the chair, we are surely going to ensure that we are following up 6 months. Even before the 6 months, we want to follow up so that we know if whatever proposals we gave are being looked at, so that we do not have majority companies wanting to suppress the small shareholders, big companies suppressing small shareholders in those companies. So, Madam Speaker, allow me at this point, I just want to beg to reply, and pursuant to Standing Order 66.3, I request that putting of the question be deferred to another day. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator S.C. Okenyuri. The putting of question is deferred to the next sitting of this House. That will be tomorrow, if the order paper allows. Next order.
Order number 17, motion, report of the Standing Committee on Trade, Industrialization and Tourism on a petition to the Senate on the need for the introduction of the Hospitality Professionals Bill.
Senator Okenyuri, are you still the one presenting that report on behalf of the chair? You may proceed.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I therefore move that the Senate adopts the report of the Standing Committee on Trade, Industrialization and Tourism on a petition to the Senate on the need for the introduction of the Hospitality Professionals Bill laid on the table of the Senate on Thursday, 5th of December, 2024. And I wish to request that Senator Mungatana seconds.
Senator Mungatana.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, if you remember, there was a time, first of all, I beg to second, but there was a time that the practitioners of HR, and HR here means human resource, they never used to have a profession called human resource practitioners. And Madam Speaker, I remember very well, many years ago, when we were serving in the National Assembly, the human resource practitioners came and approached us and said, look, you have lawyers, you have the QSs, you have the architects, you have the doctors and so on. All these are professions that are old and well established. But the human resource profession is now come of age in this country. And in other jurisdictions, human resource practitioners have their own boards, they ensure ethical standards, and they do this kind of thing. So we request that you help us have this law in place. And Madam Speaker, I remember, I don't recall exactly which member of parliament was working on that, but I actively participated in bringing up this law that created the profession for human resource practitioners. Madam Speaker, in this case, we are speaking about the professions, the professionals in the hospitality industry. Madam Speaker, Kenya is very well known. If you go to very many East African countries, you will find that the professionals who are running those big hotels are from Kenya. Madam Speaker, you will remember that when we went to South Sudan during the games in a few years ago, most of those hotels, the managers, the assistant managers, the caterers, they were people who had been trained in Utalii College here. Madam Speaker, during its heydays, Utalii College used to produce a lot of professionals who have gone to serve with distinction across East Africa and the rest of Africa. So, Madam Speaker, if we say today that now the hospitality profession needs to have its own act, its own profession, so that now they have professional standards, they have ethical standards. Madam Speaker, this is a very good step towards giving these people professional independence. Why I say so is because as it stands now, Madam Speaker, the hospitality profession is regulated by the Kenya Tourism Board, and it is the one that oversees tourism and hospitality sector. It is also affected by the Tourism Regulatory Authority, which is responsible for licensing and regulating tourism and hospitality businesses. But, Madam Speaker, the KTB, Kenya Tourism Board, the board itself is comprised of people who may not necessarily be professionals in the hospitality industry. And maybe the management may be, but the people who sit at the board are people who may not necessarily be professionals in that field. So can you imagine, Madam Speaker, that you are a professional chef, you are a professional hotel manager, you are the one who is in charge of cleaning and supervising, you are the matron there. Madam Speaker, can you imagine, as a profession, you've been a chef for the last 30 years, and the person who is regulating your career, your profession, is a person who may have been never associated with that profession, but because they are a member of the Kenya Tourism Board, they are the ones who are controlling you. Madam Speaker, that is not a state of affairs that must be encouraged or continue to be encouraged. So, Madam Speaker, fully support this idea. Madam Speaker, I pray, as I second this idea, this bill, this idea, that Senate will support this, that Kenyans who are in this profession will feel they belong to a profession, that they will be the ones who are in charge of their own. Madam Speaker, when there is misconduct within the hotel industry, they'll be able to actually punish the people who misconduct themselves. Madam Speaker, not so long ago, we were speaking here in this Senate about some people of foreign, I don't want to mention their names, but they are of foreign extraction, who are mistreating Kenyans because they are coming to the hotel, and just because of the skin of their colors, they are not given access to their hotel or the restaurant. And Madam Speaker, the governor of Nairobi had to revoke a license because of that misconduct. Madam Speaker, such people should be punished by ethical standards within the hospitality industry. Such people should be really indicted by their own professionals within that practice. So, Madam Speaker, I think it is not even in the place of a governor to come and bring discipline to the hospitality industry. I think the hospitality industry can self-regulate, just like the legal profession, just like the people in media, just like the people in medicine, and so on. So, Madam Speaker, I think this is a very good step towards professionalizing hospitality industry. And with those very many remarks, I want to congratulate the mover and the committee for the good work they have done. Madam Speaker, I beg to second. Thank you.
Honourable Senators, I propose the question that the Senate adopts the report of the Standing Committee on Trade, Industrialization and Tourism on a petition to the Senate on the need for the introduction of the Hospitality Professionals Bill laid on the table of the Senate on Thursday, 5th December 2024. Senators intending to contribute to these motions. Senator Karen Nyamo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to support the bill. There exists a lacuna, Madam Speaker, in the law whereby the hospitality professionals don't have any legal framework that they operate under. I particularly really support having a professional association that they can operate under, where their interests can be taken care of. It is actually very interesting that all this time they have been operating without an association, given the fact that they really contribute significantly to our economy and to the GDP in the country. Madam Speaker, this legislative proposal is an excellent one in my view, and I support. With those few words, I support, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Senator Nyamo. Do you want to contribute to this motion on the hospitality professionals? You may proceed, Senator Dan Manzo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, this is resulting out of a petition, and hospitality is a very key area of foreign exchange into our country, and that has to be organized in such a way that at all material times, visitors from other countries feel free to come to our country. Madam Speaker, at some point, there's a time we had a little bit of political turmoil, and a lot of people had booked hotels, cancelled, and flew to Seychelles instead of coming to our country. And therefore, owing to the petition, then that will end up into a bill, and we'll be able to put a framework whereby at all material times we vitiate factors which make sure that people do not visit our country. And therefore, we have to maximize on how hospitality is run in the country so that there is fair competition, and that at all material times visitors feel welcome to our country so that we can continue earning foreign exchange, and our country as a destination becomes more and more popular. I thank you, Madam Speaker. I support.
Thank you, Honourable Senator. Now I will call upon the mover of this motion to reply. Senator Essie, can you read?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to thank Senator Mungatana for seconding this motion, and for also taking his time to actually this moment to just support work that is aimed at helping Kenyans. Madam Speaker, I also want to thank in a special way Senator Karen Nyamu, who's also stood with me in supporting this report. And finally, thank Senator Maanzo for also supporting this report. Madam Speaker, I wish to actually also comment briefly by saying that when the petitioner actually came to the committee with this proposal, we actually saw a good opportunity to actually help them have a legislative proposal that is actually going to assist, because we very well know that the hospitality industry is very critical in this country. Just early in the afternoon, we had allegations being raised through a statement on issues of discrimination, injustices in the hotel industry generally. So, Madam Speaker, maybe had we had such a legislative proposal, most of these issues would have actually been tackled and highlighted under it. Professionals in this area will also be safe to operate, because different professionals in this country have their associations under which they also belong. So let the hospitality professionals not be the only ones who are not actually falling in place, so that they miss out on issues to do with licensing, training, education, and just having frameworks that will ensure they are operating in a manner that suits them and the public, Madam Speaker. So, Madam Speaker, I beg to reply. And at this point, pursuant to Standing Order 66.3, I request that putting of the question be deferred to another day. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Okenyuri. The putting of question is deferred to the next sitting of Senate. I will now reorganize the order paper and request the clerk to call out order number 14.
Order number 14, motion, report of the Standing Committee on Agriculture, Livestock and Fisheries on a petition to the Senate regarding the catastrophic maize diseases that farmers in Bomet County have endured for the last 12 years.
The chairman of Agriculture Committee is not in the house. That motion is deferred to the next session. Next order.
Order number 15, motion, report of the Standing Committee on Agriculture, Livestock and Fisheries on a petition to the Senate regarding graft investigation by the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission on the West Kano irrigation scheme.
The chairperson of the Standing Committee on Agriculture is not in the House, so the motion will be deferred to the next sitting of the House. Next, we will reorganize the order paper and call out order number 18 to 23. The order 18 to 23 are deferred to the next sitting of the House. Honorable Senators, there being no other business on the order paper, Senator Karen Nyamu, you should be on your feet. The chair is on her feet. Honorable Senators, there being no other business on the order paper, the Senate stands adjourned until tomorrow, Wednesday, 5th March 2025 at 9:30 a.m. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I support I support Honorable Masara for bringing this very important matter